Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're so happy that you're a part of our Reading with Your Kids podcast family. You know, this is Christmas week, and it's a very special time and a very happy time for so many people, but it can be a very difficult time for so many of our neighbors and friends, people dealing with loss, people remembering loss. We have a wonderful guest for you today. Her name is Melissa Lyons, and she's written a book called I Will Always Love You. Before Melissa joins us, I would love to give you a Christmas present, a gift of my latest book. It's called Love That I Matter to You. Love That I Matter to You. It's a wonderful book. I think it's a wonderful book that I wrote especially for children to read to their parents. It has a wonderful message that kids will absolutely adore sharing with you. And it's a message that you will love hearing again and again and again. Our friend Alan Oberio just sent me a picture of her child and his copy of Love That I Matter to You. And her child, Linux, has this huge smile on his face. And when I received it, it really made my day. And I would love for you and your child to have that same smile and that same reaction. Like I said, you can read it for free. All you need to do is to sign up for our newsletter. The newsletter is free and the book is free. Just go to readingwithyourkids.com and on the right-hand side of the screen, you see a little subscribe here kind of button. All you need to do is put in your name and your email, and you will get a link to that free digital download of my latest book, Love That I Matter to You. Oh, and hey, if you haven't already done it, today, please go to the iHeartRadio Podcast Awards website and vote for the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We've been nominated as the best kids and family podcast. We'd love it if you could support us with your vote. Joining us on the line right now from someplace, it sounds magical. This is really true, though. She is living south of one of the major U.S. cities, but she's in Canada. That's right. She's coming to us from Windsor in Ontario, Canada. She is the author of I Will Always Love You. Please welcome to the show, Melissa Lyons. Melissa, how are you?
I'm great. Great to be here.
So happy to be here. Melissa and I were joking about the fact that Windsor is south of Detroit, which kind of boggles your mind sometimes when you're trying to put that together. But it's true, and that's one of those cool, funky facts you can kind of throw people off if you're playing trivia someday.
True enough.
Yeah. So tell us about I Will Always Love You.
I Will Always Love You is a very special story. It's written from the perspective of those who have gone, who passed away, who we've lost. And it guides readers towards feeling hopeful and happy memories, but they're also given permission to cry and be sad if they want. And then they're moved towards feeling like there's a purpose in the message that is possibly coming from someone who they've lost.
It's a beautiful thing, but I think, now this is a picture book, and I think a reaction a lot of folks might have is, why are you talking about this in a picture book? I don't want my 3-year-old, I don't want my 5-year-old, I don't want my 6-year-old talking about this kind of stuff.
Well, the truth of the story, about the story, is that I didn't set out to write it. I didn't one day say I'm going to write a book about loss and hope and love. I was actually journaling, and these words came to me in the form of a miracle. That's all I can tell you, because I wasn't a writer before that. But when I found them in my journal and I read them, I thought they were very interesting. But when I tried to speak them out loud, I couldn't actually speak the words. I was so overcome with emotion, and it was such an experience. It was almost like if someone was to drop a puppy or a baby at your doorstep, even if you didn't know how to raise it or didn't want to raise it, you would take care of it. And that's how these words came to me. So I know that they have a higher purpose in the world. The reason why they have a picture book, they're in a picture book, is because there are very few words and they rhyme, but the meaning, the message is so deep and meaningful that the pictures allow the readers to take their own story and their own guidance from them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that we dealt with as a family, is we were very open and honest with our kids. I was telling Melissa before the show that my dad passed away when my son was 6 months old. So he didn't have to really deal with, he was at the funeral and everything, but he was 6 months old and he didn't really understand what was going on. But as he grew and as my daughter came into our lives and grew, there were these pictures of this person who held my son and who wasn't around anymore. So my kids very early on understood that that life comes to an end, and we were always very open with our kids. When someone in our lives passed, we would talk about it and we would give them the option of attending a service. And usually they would choose to come along and kind of be there and go through the process with us. And we felt that it was a very healthy thing for our kids and for our family to do, to be talking about this reality of life. But there's so many families who just don't. Well, I mean, I remember growing up, didn't go to a funeral until I was 16 or 17 years old. That just wasn't allowed.
Well, it's true. It's a very personal experience for people, for families, and everybody has their own way. But at the end of the day, whoever is dealing with the loss has their own journey too, regardless of how the people around them deal with it. And one of the most beautiful and certainly one of the most touching things that happened to me was a stranger sent me a message saying, "Thank you so much for writing your book. My daughter, who's 12, her best friend lost her mom to cancer. We bought the book and we gave it to her at the funeral home today. And after everybody left the funeral home and she was alone, with just the family, the young girl, the 12-year-old, walked up to the casket and sat with her mom and she read her mom the full story, which takes about 3 minutes. And so there she was with her mom reading the story, "I Will Always Love You." And that to me speaks volumes as to what the book can do. And on another level too, Jack Canfield, the man behind Chicken Soup for the Soul, that the millions and millions of books that were sold, he read the book actually to a group of people. And when he was done reading it, he said that one of his very close friends had lost his wife the week before and he hadn't done anything because he didn't know what to do. After reading the book, he took the book and gifted it to his friend. So there's a grandfather to a grandfather giving this book. Mm-hmm. And then you've got a young 12-year-old reading it to her mother who has passed. So it's got a lot of value depending on where people are coming from.
Yeah. And that's one of the beauties that we've talked a lot about on the podcast, is that picture books just aren't for kids. They're profound and they may have lots of pictures and the words might be simple and they might rhyme. But boy, oh boy, there's a lesson in so many picture books for people of all ages.
Yes, it's so true. And let's face it, no matter how old we are, when we lose our parent, we're still the child. So there's a child in all of us that needs to be consoled. There's something about rhyming, something about pictures. And these kids in I Will Always Love You actually have gray skin and they don't have any faces. They're beautiful, but they're so inviting for the reader to put themselves into that journey. And the kids start out in the morning and their hearts are kind of blue and cold. And as they move through the day, by the end, their hearts are white light and they've gone on this adventure and it's nighttime. And, most of us can actually get such comfort from just imagining a day like that when we're feeling sort of torn up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm trying to imagine what kind of questions somebody listening might have. And one of the things that pops into my mind is that, I was talking about services and our kids attending services. One of the things that happens is when someone leaves us is that it seems you're always brought back to whatever church we may have started with, if our families were churchgoers. Is this a book that is written from a certain religious perspective, or is it something that is would be applicable to everyone?
I believe it's applicable to everyone. It's spirit driven in the sense that the only thing that I would say is that there's a higher thought, but it's not tied into any specific religion at all. I mean, one line that says, believe in angels and spirits or not, but consider this, I hear all of your thoughts. And the idea is that you want to feel the pain and let it move through you, and then shift your thoughts to things that feel better. Because why not? If it makes you feel better, as long as it's legal and it doesn't hurt anyone, then it's worth thinking. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's that moving to relief of your anguish or your sorrow, and to have good thoughts. Like another line is that realize that by letting me go, you'll give us both freedom more than you know. So like you can release that person. It's that guilt of, I want you to live for me because I'm not there, and you can, and it's so freeing.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I wish it's my mind. Anybody who's listened to the show knows my mind is weird, and it goes in weird kind of different places. And as you were speaking and sharing those lines from the story, all I could think is, I wish I had this book 22, 23 years ago. I was performing down in Puerto Rico, and I was in a school up in the rainforest, and I arrived at the school early in the morning, and when I got there, everybody in the school was crying. And just inconsolable. When I finally found someone who could speak, and then someone who could speak English, they explained to me that the night before, one of their 5th graders, went into the forest and was swept up by the river. It was a rainy season, swept up by the river and was gone. And I said, well, my goodness gracious, you certainly don't want me and my silly little magic show. I'll go back to the hotel and I'll keep you on my prayers. And they said, no, you have to stay here and make these kids feel better. And
right.
Okay. And it would have been so wonderful. And it would have been so wonderful because they said, well, you have to say something about Wilfredo. And I said, I never met. And it would have been so wonderful to have I Will Always Love You to be able to read it. Now, I would have had to translate it in Spanish, and that might have been challenging. But to be able to have this resource is such a gift, like that little girl who read it to her mom, and like the grandfather who received it. Just to be able to sit down and to read words that kind of allow them to feel sad and to understand that there is a tomorrow, and then that person will always live in their hearts.
Yes, it's true. And in the last page, one of the lines is, and this is where this is like passing the baton, and this is what gives us our permission to feel joy again. It's be the one who shares the light that was mine. Honor me now by letting yours shine. So it's saying, do it for me. And then at least you have more of a purpose. You're not doing it because you forgot the person. You're doing it because you remember the person, and you will shine for them because they're not here to shine. So you do it. 2 days ago, I was speaking to a group of 200 plus, grade 4, 5, and 6 children. And, at that school, they'd lost a few different children, and one was, a 5-year-old a year ago, the week that I was there. And those kids already all knew the book. The teachers had been reading it, and they just wanted me to read it to them. Wow. And it was amazing to me because they all found the hope in it. And that gave me hope because, it's my journey too. Mm-hmm. These are the words. I don't know where they came from or why they're here. I just know I get to bring them. And so when I see them in action, it's pretty heartwarming.
That's wonderful. Beautiful. What you're mentioning kids, one of the things that one of the first times that kids have to deal with loss is the loss of a pet. And you've just written a beautiful book. I don't know if I call it a sequel, but you've written a beautiful book that deals with that, called Until We Meet Again. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, it's very similar to I Will Always Love You. It's from grief to hope after losing a pet, because that's something that we go through more often in this life than we go through with people, because we have so many and their lives are shorter. And it has every type of pet you can imagine, I believe. And it takes the kids through appreciating and loving the fact that they had the pet. There's 2 of my lines that are just so favorite, and one is, because it's coming from the pet, as the pet has passed, just like the other one has come from the humans. And let me just pull this up, what I want to say. I taught you things as you watched me live, unconditional love and to always forgive.
Wow.
Because that's what we learn from our animals, right? They have this unconditional love for us. And so, yeah, so these are the things that book talks about. And it's a really special book too. And the animal or the pet that's gone encourages the person or the child or whoever's there just to go back to living their life and remembering to live like they lived every day to day. They didn't worry. And you should do the same.
How has the experience of writing these books affected you?
They've given me a life purpose professionally that I never could explain or could understand. Like I felt like most of my life there was a bit of a dark hole in me professionally. I never felt fulfilled regardless of what I was doing, and even if it was good and successful, there was still always something missing. Now that I have these books and I talk to people and I help people with whatever they're going through, like a life derailer, and get them back to thinking about just changing your thoughts, little bits can change the trajectory of your life by taking every moment you could lose hours or days. It's kind of like, don't wish this moment away because you wish it was different. And so that's how it's changed me. It's changed my whole outlook on life.
Yeah.
I don't get frazzled by the little things anymore because I realize that they don't matter.
Yeah. Fascinating. Now, I'm wondering, we seem, Canada and United States, they're different countries, slightly different cultures, but we're so similar. I mean, we're great cousins and we hang out and we have differences once in a while, but for the most part, we're very, very similar, I'm wondering, the way that we deal with loss in this way, is it universal, or have you experienced or have you learned that different cultures deal with loss differently, and different cultures are more kind of already in tune with what you're trying to tell folks, and I will always love you?
I don't know an absolute answer to that, but what I would say to you is that although these books deal with grief, what I would say that I know more is hope and love, and changing your perspective about whatever it is. If it's someone cut you off, or if it's you don't have enough money, or something happened at your work or your school that day. It's taking those thoughts that you have that are leading you down a path that's going towards like darkness, and just slightly tweaking that thought towards light and love. And so that's what I would say. So in that sense, I think Canadians and Americans are very much the same. And culturally, I think that we have to learn to think more, or move our thinking from our heads to our hearts more as the world changes, and become more willing to allow life to unfold and just be grateful.
Yeah. One of the things you and I talked a little bit about beforehand is the reality that a lot of families are facing of you have a loved one in your life and they haven't passed yet, but it's very clear that they're on their way, that they're in the last moments, maybe it's the last couple of years or last weeks or whatever. And a lot of times, as I was sharing with you, someone that we love is still alive, but they're not there. They don't recognize us, and they don't recognize the surroundings, and they don't know themselves. So, we've lost them in that way. Do you see I Will Always Love You as something that can be a valuable experience for that family to experience?
So you're saying when they're not the person who's ill isn't cognizant that you're there. That's what you're talking about, like a dementia state.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have any experience with anyone telling me about using the book in that environment. I would think that it would make sense because it still gives you messages. So you look at someone and you're sad, and it's like, it's the same message, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same message. Like, I want you to follow your dreams. I want you to look for message that I send, I want you to be as kind to yourself as you were to me. Like, all of those messages. So I think that they can help. Yeah. For sure. Another place where I didn't know, again, because I'm not a grief expert, I'm more about, like I said, changing thoughts. In hospice, when people are in the last days of their life, I was afraid to even introduce it there because I didn't know, what, if it would be harm. You don't ever want to do harm, right?
Mm-hmm.
But several hospices actually have taken the book and used it with people during the last stage of their life. And at times when families are so grief-stricken and they're still alive, this book actually puts words in people's mouths that they want to say, but they can't think because they're so focused on a fear, maybe. This brings it back around to, okay, we had a journey together and it was pretty great. And these are the things I'm going to remember. And it actually can make the last stages of life so much more impactful and a better memory to go through.
Yeah. And boy, that is a really very, very difficult moment to have someone who is leaving us. But it is beautiful if you're able, and that's something I was able to do with my grandmother, to be with her at her end and to say goodbye and to tell each other we loved each other. So I could definitely see how I Will Always Love You would be such a blessing in that kind of situation.
It really is, and I didn't know how much it would be until people have expressed to me how it's changed, and to me, like, wow, because those are the moments, we can't get any of our moments back, that's why we shouldn't wish them away. But that being said, when we know that they're there, if we can make them better and we can consciously choose to make them better, then it changes the rest of our lives again for everybody around. There's another little line too in I Will Always Love You, and it's, I'll send you hints so you know I'm around. Pay closer attention to each sight and each sound. You might see butterflies or other clues that I leave. It could be a rainbow. You'll just have to believe. Then you've got kids looking for things like, oh, there's grandma or there's grandpa, or, oh, whenever I see a feather, I know my mom was there. And those are the things where no one will ever know if it's right or wrong. I mean, we know the sun rises every day, so we believe it. So if that feather's there and it makes you feel good to see that feather and have a good thought of the person you lost, then do it. Right? Do it.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I really, I absolutely remember when my dad passed and my son was 6 or 7 months old, there'd be times that he would stare off into space and my wife would come in the room and go, your dad's here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that brought a lot of comfort to my wife and to me, and whether it was right, whether it was wrong, it was comforting, and that comfort is real.
Yep.
And there's absolutely value in that.
Yeah, there's value, especially when we're dealing with everybody, but with kids, anything that can keep them on that joyous track will keep them going somewhere good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, I know folks are going to want to know more about I Will Always Love You, and until we meet again, and learn more about you. So where can they go online to connect with you?
My website is www.melissa-lyons.com. So that's MELISSA-LYONS.com.
Excellent. And you don't have to put A in there just because she's Canadian. Just melissa-lyons.com.
Nice one. And I wanted to let you know too that I didn't know this. I learned this about my website, but there's on the top left corner of the website, it shows you like Facebook and YouTube and all of the different social medias. And if you click on my YouTube icon there, I've actually read both of the books in my own voice with all of the graphics behind on a YouTube video, because of course I would love people to buy these books, and that's part of it, but I want them to be there for people in the world when they need them. So you don't have to buy them to experience the story. They're there for free for the world when they need them.
Beautiful. I just love it. And I absolutely believe that this is a beautiful book that a family will want in their family libraries, because again, we're not talking about this. This isn't just a book for 3, 4, 5-year-olds. It's a book for everyone, because everyone experiences loss. And you don't need a master's degree to kind of get through it. Sometimes just beautiful pictures and simple, beautiful rhymes can help touch that part of our heart that the person we lost is still living in. And that's going to give us some hope. And that's a beautiful thing. I such a wonderful time speaking with you today, Melissa. Thank you so very, very much. Hey, make sure you check out Melissa's books, I Will Always Love You, and also Until We Meet Again. I'm going to say until we meet again, because I'm sure there's going to be some great new work coming from Melissa Lyons. I look forward to you being back on the show, Melissa. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Tracy Blum. Tracy Blum is the author of One Big Bully, and she will be here. We're really looking forward to it. Fantastic interview. Hey, if you are the author of a great children's book, we would love to have you as a guest on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Being a guest gives you an opportunity to tell thousands and thousands of people about your great book. And being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it is absolutely free. All you need to do is go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the contact button, let us know about your great book. We will let you know the next steps, and like I said, they're really, really easy. Hey, I want to thank Melissa Lyons for being here with us today, sharing her insight into loss and reminding us that our loved ones will always love us. And I also want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today. And thank you so much for making the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.